something, anything really, and just wonder, how does a company actually know what it costs to make that? I'm not talking about the price tag you see, but the real costs to the business itself. It's got to be one of the most fundamental questions in business, right? Well, today we're going to pull back that curtain. We're going to see how it's done. It's this amazing mix of art and science, and honestly, it's at the very heart of how businesses actually work. So, to wrap our heads around this, let's just use a super simple example, a bicycle. Seems pretty straightforward. You got your wheels, a frame, handlebars, easy enough. But how does a company take all those different pieces, plus the people who put it together and the factory they build it in, and somehow boil all of that down into one single, reliable cost number? That, right there, is the million-dollar question we're going to answer. And look, I know what you might be thinking, that this sounds like some kind of boring accounting exercise, but it's really not. Getting this number right is absolutely mission critical. I mean it. It is the bedrock that every single profitable business is built on. Just think about it for a second. If you don't know the true cost, then figuring out if you're profitable is, well, it's just a guess. How are you supposed to set a sales price? How do you figure out the value of those thousands of bikes just sitting in your warehouse? You can't, not accurately anyway. So yeah, this number, it's everything. Okay, so before we dive any deeper, we need to get one key distinction straight. In the business world, you've basically got two different camps when it comes to figuring out costs. There's the world of services, and then there's the world of physical manufactured products. So in accounting speak, a service uses what's called a cost estimate without a quantity structure. But for our bicycle, oh, it's way more complex. It needs a cost estimate with a quantity structure, which I know sounds super technical, but it's just a fancy way of saying we need a detailed blueprint, like a recipe for the product. And that recipe, that's what we're going to focus on. So what is this quantity structure thing anyway? Honestly, the absolute easiest way to think about it is like a recipe, right? If you want to bake a cake, you need a list of ingredients and you need a set of instructions. Manufacturing a product, it is exactly the same concept. Okay, so the first part of our recipe is called the bill of material, or BOM for short. This is literally the ingredients list. It's this super precise, detailed list of every single component, and I mean down to the tiniest little screw that you need to build just one of your final products. So for our bicycle, the BOM would say you need one frame, one saddle, two wheels, and so on, all the way down to the last nut and bolt. You see, every single little piece is accounted for. This is the what part of our product recipe. And that brings us to the second part of our recipe, the routing. So if the BOM is the what, the routing is the how. It's your set of step-by-step instructions. It spells out every single action, every work step, and, this is crucial, exactly how much time each of those steps should take to finish. So you can see here, the routing for our bike just lays out the entire assembly line process, from attaching the wheels to the frame, all the way to that final quality check. And every one of these steps has a very specific amount of time and resources assigned to it. Okay, so we've got our recipe now, we've got the bill of material for all the ingredients, and the routing for the instructions. Now comes the part that really matters, putting a price tag on that entire recipe. And this is where the magic happens. The costing system, it automatically takes our two recipe components and just translates them into dollars and cents. It looks at every single item on that bill of material and multiplies it by how much it costs. Then, it takes every step in the routing and multiplies the time it takes by the cost of labor and running the machines. You add those two things together, and bam, you've got your direct product cost. But hold on, we're not quite done yet. What about all the costs that aren't tied directly to making just one bike? Things like the factory manager's salary or the electricity bill. These are what we call overhead costs. So to get the true cost, the system has to go one step further and spread a tiny slice of all those general expenses onto every single bicycle that gets produced. So we've combined our direct costs from the recipe, and we've added in a fair share of the overhead. So what do we end up with? Well, the system finally spits out the single most important number for the entire business, the true total cost of one single product. And what's really cool is that this isn't just one big number. The beauty of this whole process is that the final cost can be sliced and diced in so many different ways. You can zoom way in to see the cost of a single screw, or you can zoom out to see that high-level breakdown of materials, labor, and overhead. This gives a business just incredible insight into what's going on. And this final number, it doesn't just go into some report that gets filed away and forgotten. No way. It becomes something incredibly important, the product's official standard price in the company's master data. Now, don't think of this as the retail price you'd pay. Think of it as the official internal cost benchmark for that product. And trust me, this is a huge deal. Why is it such a big deal? Because that standard price is what's used to value the company's assets. So if there are, say, 10,000 finished bicycles sitting in the warehouse, the company knows their exact value on the balance sheet. It all comes back to that incredibly detailed calculation we just walked through. It's a really powerful and precise process, isn't it? And it all kicks off with that simple idea of a recipe. But it does leave us with one final fascinating question. Now that the company knows its true cost with this level of accuracy, how does that information end up shaping the final price tag that you see in the store? Well, that's where cost meets strategy, and that's a story for another explainer. Let's talk about something that's absolutely critical